The hope of all the free peoples rests upon the shoulders of two simple hobbits of the Shire as they head towards Mordor with the One Ring. Yet the Dark Lord Sauron orders his forces to seize the final true bastion of resistance in Middle-earth, the city of Minas Tirith, and with it the ancient kingdom of Gondor itself. As the dark armies close in, overrunning the Ramis Ekor, the battle for the future of Middle-earth is about to begin. By the year 3019 of the Third Age of Middle-earth, Gondor, the ancient kingdom of men, was over 3,000 years old, originally founded by exiles from the ancient and grander kingdom of Numenor, which was destroyed at the end of the Second Age. The architect of that great fall of men, Sauron, had been present and fled the downfall back to Middle-earth and his seat of Barad-dûr, where he immediately attacked the surviving faithful Númenórean lords in exile, Elendil, and his sons Isildur and Anarion. In a grand last alliance of elves and men, the three peoples managed to push back the Dark Lord, besiege and ultimately defeat him, but at the cost of King Isildur's brother Anarion and father Elendil. As a founder of Gondor, Isildur left the governance of the new kingdom to his nephew, Meneldil, before returning north with the One Ring, which he took as weregeld for his father and brother's deaths. Isildur's decision proved foolish, as the ring betrayed its new bearer and was lost, while its existence guaranteed the endurance of Sauron, though in a severely diminished form. Unlike the other northern kingdom of Arnor, however, the southern kingdom endured and even experienced a golden age during the time of the so-called Ship Kings. Unfortunately, this was not to last, as the kingdom suffered several great calamities that severely weakened its power. The Kinstrife, which saw a ruinous civil war over the crown, the Great Plague, which reduced its population, numerous conflicts with Southerners and Easterlings, as well as the loss of its king in the year 2050. During the time of the Stewards, Gondor's influence declined, so that by 2942 it was vulnerable to further assault. By 3019, Sauron sent his allies, the Corsairs of Umbar, to raid the coastal settlements of Gondor, the better to draw men and resources from his true target, the capital. The true incursion into Gondor proper began when the Lord Aragorn, direct descendant and heir of Isildur, revealed himself to Sauron through the use of a Palantir. In commune with the Dark Lord, Aragorn showed that the sword of Elendil had been reforged. Thinking Aragorn a threat, possibly even in possession of the One Ring, Sauron elected to smash Gondor before Aragorn could fully unify the three peoples against him. To this end, the Dark Lord sent two armies forth from Mordor, one under the leadership of his deadliest servant, the Witch King of Angmar, deploying from Minas Morgul, and the second issuing from the Black Gate. The northern army was set to capture the strategic island of Caerandros, while the Witch King's host was to seize Osgiliath, the ancient and ruined former capital of Gondor, which was held by a small garrison of men, including the rangers of Ithilien under Faramir, son of the steward Denethor. The resulting battle of Osgiliath was well fought, but ultimately futile for the men of Gondor. The Witch King had prepared rafts for his innumerable hordes of orcs, who began ferrying themselves across the Anduin, despite heavy missile damage. The fighting devolved into bitter street-by-street melee, which was broken with the arrival of the Witch King himself, prompting the decision to retreat to the White City. The assault on Osgiliath resulted in the wounding of Faramir by a poisoned dart, removing an important commander from the field, and leaving the Witch King's path clear to overrun the Ramis Ekor, the vast encircling fortifications defending the White City. The northern approach was guarded by a sizable force, with trenches and stakes mitigating the threat of Rohan, who were bound by oath to aid the Gondorians in time of war. With this force in place, Sauron hoped to ensure that no flanking attack would be successful. Meanwhile, Faramir's retreating force was pursued almost to the gates, with the former forming a rearguard that was savaged by both Southron cavalry and fell beasts. At this point, however, a cavalry force led by Gandalf the White and Imrahil, Prince of Dol Amroth, sallied out of the city to drive away this vanguard of the enemy. Despite this small success though, masses of troops swarmed the Pelennor from the north, south and east, necessitating the withdrawal of the Gondorian force. The mood in Minas Tirith itself was sombre, given Faramir's fall and Denethor's disappointment that his ally King Theoden of Rohan had yet to answer his summons for aid, despite his order that the beacons be lit and the red arrow sent. Furthermore, the Osgiliath garrison had lost around a third of their number. Yet even now, other events elsewhere provided hope for the besieged men of Minas Tirith. To the south, another battle raged in Linhir between the men of the area and the corsairs of Umbar. The arrival of Aragorn with his Grey Company and decisively the Oathbreakers routed both armies, yet the Gondorians under Angbor rallied and under Aragorn's command pursued the corsairs to Pelegir. At Pelegir, Aragorn and his army confronted the main force of the corsairs, their fleet anchored and awaiting the push to finish off the White City. The Oathbreakers drove the enemy mad with fear, leaving their fleet at the disposal of Aragorn and his mortal host, who freed the slaves on the vessels before sailing towards Harlond. To the north, the Rohirrim, under their king Theoden, was riding south in accordance with the oath of Eorl, but their scouts found the road blocked by an Orcish host, who had dug in with trenches and stakes. Fortunately for the riders of the Mark, there was an alternative route, provided by the Druidane people of the Druidan Forest. Following an old forgotten road, originally constructed by the Dunedain, Theoden's army circumvented the blocking force on the northern road. The orcs of the area had also dismantled this section of the Ramus Ekor, the breach allowing the Rohirrim through. Back at Minas Tirith itself, the armies of Mordor battered the great walls with flaming projectiles, setting much of the lower levels aflame. The lowest and thickest wall, however, was impenetrable, being composed of a black stone of the same type as Isengard, a tower that even the Ents could not rip down, despite their freakish strength. In response to this stiff resistance, the Witch King ordered the deployment of Grond, an enormous ram of around 100 feet in length, inched forward by great beasts, with mountain trolls behind to wield it. It was fashioned in the deepest smithies of Mordor itself, into the likeness of a ravening wolf. In response to Grond's approach, Gandalf the White assembled a force of men before the gates, with the Witch King of Angmar leading his own troops on the other side. Grond, aided by ruinous spells uttered by the Lord of the Nazgul himself, smashed the gates open. It was now that the greatest of the nine rode through, screaming his terrible war cry, only to be confronted by none other than Gandalf the White. But before any battle proper could be joined, a cock crowed, and the blasts of the riders of Rohan blared clearly from the north. Theoden's men had overrun the northern half of the Pelennor, and the Witch King withdrew to deal with this new threat. The initial charge of the Rohirrim smashed the Orcish infantry, before Theoden once again charged, confronting the Haradrim cavalry. Theoden's host was heavily outnumbered, and yet overcame, given the Rohirrim's superior skill and fury. The fighting at this stage was ferocious, with King Theoden himself earning personal glory by slaying the leader of the Haradrim, known only as the Black Serpent, before rallying his men and driving the shattered Haradrim remnants east. It was in this moment of triumph, however, that tragedy struck the Rohirric host. The Witch King zeroed in on Theoden, whose horse Snowmane was shot by a black dart, crushing his master and leaving him to the Witch King's wrath. It was then that a lone Rohirric soldier confronted the Witch King and his fell beast, revealing herself as Éowyn, and, with Merry Brandybuck's help, slew both the fell beast and the Lord of the Nazgul. Meanwhile, Theoden's fall did not hinder the Rohirrim, who rallied under the command of Éomer. He was met by Sauron forces, including the Mumakil, while other Morgul forces streamed into the field from the Causeway forts east. Even with the Black Captain's fall, the prospects of the Men of the West remained grim. In a last-ditch effort, the men of the city sallied out too, with the Swan Knights of Imrahil and the cavalry of the city heading to the aid of Éomer. The Rohirrim had defeated the Sauron infantry and cavalry, but were being outmatched by the monstrous Oliphaunts. Variags, half-trolls and Easterlings were pinning down the Gondorian infantry, thus preventing their unification with Éomer. Indeed, the end appeared close, as in the distance the black sails of the corsairs of Umbar emerged. The final death blow was about to fall. Éomer's host was being whittled down and surrounded, and the Rohirrim commander ordered a shield wall for a final and glorious last stand. This new turn in fortune, however, was, of course, not to Sauron's favour, with Aragorn thundering forward on the wind at the head of another force, proving the decisive element in victory. The rallied forces of Gondor and Rohan drove the shattered hordes of Mordor back east, with most drowning in the Anduin or being slain. The Easterlings did fight hard to the last man, but by sunset the victory of the West was complete, though it was a bitter one to be sure. Sauron's vast army had been almost completely destroyed, with very few orcs or men returning to the Land of Shadow. The Haradrim, in particular, suffered near total losses, with only a vague, terrible rumour of the wrath of Gondor making its way back south. Despite all this, however, this force was still but a fraction of the Dark Lord's total strength. The losses for the Free Peoples were far more proportionately significant. Denethor, the steward of Gondor, committed suicide during the battle, leaving the kingdom leaderless in a time of war. His son and heir Faramir was incapacitated, with Prince Imrahil governing Minas Tirith. Theoden was slain. With such reduced numbers, Gondor and Rohan had in actuality only bought themselves more time, before, eventually, the Dark Lord would strike once more, possibly for the last time. True hope still lay in the quest of Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee as they headed deeper into Mordor itself, inching the One Ring ever closer to the fires of Mount Doom and Sauron's ultimate and irreversible defeat.